For anyone interested in learning how to do Islamic style bookbinding, specifically medieval Islamic style bookbinding, today I'm going to demonstrate how to do unsupported link stitch on 2 stations. This is the most common form of stitching all the different page sections together, especially earlier on in the medieval period. And it's really simple. All you need is needle and thread. I'm using silk thread because that is the period material that was most common. I use 2 strands, but you can go up to 4 depending on the thickness of your thread and the size of the holes you punched in the gatherings. So I'm doing mine as a blank book. Normally, if you were binding a book, you would apply any text and images to the pages first. And then you'd have to make very certain that you get everything in the right order and up versus down. The nice thing about doing blank pages is you don't have to worry about any of that. So to do unsupported link stitch on 2 stations, step 1, tie a knot in your thread. I've already done that. The knot needs to be big enough that it won't go through the hole that you punched. But you probably don't want it excessively big or it will leave a lump on the outside of the book when you're done. And then trim the excess threads from the knot so that it's just this nice little knot on the end of your thread. And yes, I know that's entirely not in focus, I'm sorry. So to start, pick your first gathering, go in through one of the holes from the outside to the inside, go across the inside to the other hole, go out the other hole, pull it tight. Take your next one. Oh, I forgot to mention. So when measuring the amount of thread you need, it's really simple. Basically, just take the thread, measure from one hole to the next. Keep doing that times the number of gatherings you have. If it's in excess of about 10 gatherings, the thread will get too long to be manageable. So you'll just have to pick an amount to start with and then tie in new thread as you go. I'm doing 8, so I picked a thread length appropriate to 8, hopefully. So you went in and out the first gathering. Second gathering, stack next to it. You go in the hole that's next to where the thread came out, in that hole. Then you go up and across, over and through. So you're here, you like this. It can open like this, which is not what we want. So to fix that, we're going to tug the knot out just a little bit. And let's see how well this works. Let's magnify. All right. Tug the knot out just a little bit so that you can see where the 2 threads, or more than that, if you're doing more than that. All right, tug the thread out a little bit more so you can see it really well. You're going to separate the threads, put the needle through, and then gently pull it all back tight again. You don't want to pull super hard or super tight at any stage because thread can actually cut through paper, especially when the paper's already been slightly damaged by punching a hole in it. And then you just kind of pull it a little taut. The knot should end up more or less in between the 2 gatherings. All right, so the last hole that you came out of was this one over here. So your next gathering goes next to it, and then you go down through the hole next to that, up through the middle, down through the other hole, pull tight. And then once again, we have this freely flapping gathering over here, which we don't want. So to fix that, we're going to go under this stitch here, right here, that was made between the 2 previous gatherings at that station. So we go under that. I go from the center of the spine towards the outside. So through that, and then hold the loop, because when you get closer to the end, you're going to feed your needle back through the loop that you're making now, and then pull it tight. Like I said, pull gently. You don't want to accidentally rip the paper. Grab your next gathering, and you're just going to keep doing that. Go in from the outside, across the center, down and out. And then through the stitch you made last time. Grab your needle, put it through the loop that you're making this time, and pull tight. Stack your next gathering, and then I flip them to work this way because that makes sense in my brain. You can do them however you want. From the outside, the inside, across the inside, back outside, pull it a little tight, from the outside, or from the inside to the outside, back through the loop, shorten the tail, stack your next gathering, and make sure that you go through the center of the gathering, and make sure that you don't go almost through the center of the gathering. See, to make sure that you get all of the pages in the gathering, or you're going to lose a page. If you don't move them the way I did, it shouldn't be too difficult to find a hole. Alright, fine. I'm going to feed it through the 3 pages first and then through the 4th page because I moved them around too much while I was demonstrating that. That is a viable option, it just takes longer. It's slower. Alright, and then back through the outside. Under the stitch. Back through the stitch. Grab your next gathering. Outside to inside. Oops, bumped the magnifying glass. Inside to outside. I've got to stop bumping the poor magnifying glass. Hold on. There we go. That should work better. Through the previous stitch, through the stitch you just made, and oh, guess what? My thread's too short. So you're going to get a demonstration of how to tie in new thread. That is not my favorite activity ever. Just a second. Prop that up. Okay, I've only got 1 gathering left, so I really don't need that much thread. Just grabbing about 1 foot of it. And then marrying up the 2 pieces, because I want both of them to be the same length. Down to the end, cut it. So you're basically just going to tie a square knot. I don't know the official period technique for doing this. I haven't found it in any of my research, so we're just going to do a basic square knot because that's what I know how to do. And you want to get it as tight and close into the spine as you can, so you don't have to try and drag it through the hole into other pages. Another option is to do this on the inside, where you have a little bit more space to work with, but then you have a knot on the inside of your book, which I personally don't like, because it creates a small lump, which is usually pretty imperceptible, but I'm finicky that way. And then you take these short threads and make sure they are the short threads and not the long one you just tied in, and trim them off. And then re-thread your needle and continue on. All right, so last gathering, you start it just like all the rest. Outside in, cross, inside out, and it undid the knot I did. Well, this is problematic. All right, so you have to be gentle when you do that, and I wasn't gentle enough. So we're going to do something else instead. We're going to backtrack and make this a 6 gathering book, because I don't feel like dealing with it again. But that's the theory for how to tie in new thread. You may want to knot it a couple more times than I did. Make it more secure. All right, so we're gonna say this is the last gathering I'm gonna do. So I've gone up from the inside, I've gone under the previous stitch and got back through the loop. I'm gonna do that again and tie a knot. Actually, I'm gonna tie a knot around the one we're gonna go in the previous one. You can tie it around the one you just made, but then you risk loosening the one you just made, so we don't really want super loose. So I'm gonna tie it around that one. I'm gonna feed it back to the inside of the last gathering, like so. And I'm gonna tie another knot around this long stitch, like so. I'm going to go back outside. And again, I don't know the actual medieval method for this. None of the researchers I've found have studied it. And it's not mentioned in the manuscripts, the how-to manuals that we have left. And then I tie another stitch like I did the first one. Another knot on the outside. And then the reason I do this in triplicate is because, again, you're going to cut the threads very close to the knot. And as you saw before, that has a tendency to unravel. So I tie it a bunch of times in the hopes that it will stay. As you can see, they're very loose. They move against each other very well. That's the downside of unsupported link stitch. And the reason why the next step after this is to glue the spine, which I'm not going to demonstrate in this video, but maybe I'll do another video for. All right, so this is unsupported link stitch on 2 stations, which is a medieval Islamic method for binding a book.